I want to talk Pacers and why the Pacers have a reason to follow the Colts blueprint. The Colts like their guys, that is no secret. And the Pacers like their guys too. They brought everyone back except for Jalen Smith, and they replaced him with James Wiseman. Sure, they drafted some rookies, but all those rookies are going to spend most of their time with the Mad Ants. Okay, so while the Colts like to bring everyone back after going 9-8 and missing the playoffs, the Pacers prefer to bring everyone back after making a run to a young, exciting team that made the Eastern Conference Finals. One seems to make a little bit more sense than the other. And part of the sense of it is the age of the players, the Pacers core, right? When you look at the four guys that it seems like is going to, kind of be the future of this team, they're all young. Like Tyrese Halliburton isn't 25 yet. Andrew Nembhard and Benedict Mathurin are only in their third years. Jarris Walker can't drink yet. Okay, the older players that they have are solidified. Meanwhile, when you look at the Colts, it's just a lot of question marks. Like the older players are fine. The young players, it's like, I don't know, maybe. We'll see. But, Pacers, the young players seem promising. And the old players, like I said, are solidified. Pascal Siakam is a solidified top 30 player in the NBA. Miles Turner has been the exact same player for the last 10 years, except now he's a reliable three-point shooter. Okay, you know exactly what you're getting with TJ McConnell. Those are the only three players on the Indiana Pacers that are going to consistently play that are 28 years of age or older. Everyone else is younger. And when I look at the Colts, if the Colts had a young core like this that they wanted to bring back, even if they'd gone 9-8 the year prior, then I think I would be fully on board with that plan. I'm assuming Colts fans would be on board with it, but that's just not how the Colts are. The Colts want to bring back a not old, but also not young and developing roster that didn't make the playoffs last year. Once again, one direction of a franchise makes sense, and the direction of the other doesn't. One franchise is set up for success, and the other one isn't. One franchise seems to be a shoo-in for the playoffs, and the other doesn't. And it's not hard to figure out which one is which. Like when I sit back, this upcoming season, and I watch the Pacers play, if they stay relatively healthy, then I know exactly how I'm going to feel heading into every single game. Every single game that they play in the regular season, it's going to feel like they should win, right? Because I've seen this Pacers team win. I've seen these players on this roster win not only in the regular season, but I saw them win playoff games. I know that they played teams that were injured. I don't care. Okay, because seeing young players win in the playoffs is not common, whether their competition is banged up or not. When I watch the Pacers play this year, I'm going to watch them with this expectation that they're going to be good. I'm going to watch them with this expectation that they're going to make the playoffs. And then I compare that feeling and that expectation to what I see from the Indianapolis Colts. When I watch the Colts, this upcoming Sunday when they play against the Tennessee Titans, one of the worst teams in the NFL, I don't expect them to win. I think they will, right? But it's more of a hope. It's like I hope that the Colts can go on the road to Tennessee and beat one of the worst teams in the NFL. And then the following week when they play against the Miami Dolphins, I'm going to sit here and be like, man, I think they're better than the Dolphins. Like they should win that game, but it's more of a hope than it is an expectation. Whereas the Pacers, I'm going to sit back. I'm going to watch them play a lot this year because if you're new to the show, hi, Jonathan Smith. I love basketball, so I'm going to track the Pacers all year long. And like I said, I'm going to expect them to win consistently. Meanwhile, when I watch the Colts, I'm going to hope that they win. That is one of the biggest differences between these two franchises and why one feels like it's on a path for success while the other feels like it's just been, running in place for the last, 4 years. Okay. And one of the other differences between these franchises is that the Pacers are run well. They seem to have a good owner. The president of basketball operations has done a good job. Okay. Like you've seen from the beginning that they had this plan. They go out, they acquire young star Tyrese Halliburton. They draft well. It's very evident what they want when they're drafting players. They want tall, long, athletic dudes that can shoot the basketball. Okay, like that is clearly what they're looking for. I can see the plan that Kevin Pritchard and the rest of this Pacers front office has. Like it's evident, right? And that's why they're in the process of potentially, we'll see what happens, building something special. Meanwhile, the Indianapolis Colts have an absent owner. Okay, Jim Irsay dealing with some health issues, doesn't seem as invested as he has been in prior years. So the owner is absent. They've got a general manager and Chris Ballard who hasn't had success since Phillip Rivers was the quarterback for 1 year. And it feels like it's slowly falling apart. Like I'm sitting here and I'm just kind of waiting on Jim Irsay to hit the reset button. But because he's a little more absent than he has been in prior years, I don't know if he's ever going to hit it. Okay, like everything starts at the top. Okay, like I'm lucky enough to have had good bosses at the two radio places that I've worked. Okay, before I got my degree, though, I wasn't working in radio, obviously. I worked in fast food. And working in fast food isn't fun, and it's made all the worse when you have a bad boss, bad owner, bad managers. Okay, so when I was in high school, I worked at Chick-fil-A, and it was an absolute pleasure to work there. Okay, because the owner was awesome, very accommodating. He was great. The managers, very active. It felt like the managers did more of the grunt work than like the normal red shirt employees like I was. It was really nice. It was refreshing. I felt like they were working, alongside me as opposed to just telling me what to do. I had faith in the management at the Chick-fil-A that I worked at. Then when I went to college, I worked at Taco Bell for 2 weeks. Like some of the worst weeks of my life. The managers were some of the worst human beings I've ever met. That is not hyperbole. And the owner was worse. Everything starts at the top and it trickles down. And as it trickles down, it impacts everything underneath it. And when we look at the Indianapolis Colts, their issues start somewhere at the top. Maybe it's Chris Ballard. Maybe it's Jim Irsay. Maybe it's Jim Irsay's daughters. I don't know. I have no idea. But there's clearly some sort of issue at the top of this Indianapolis Colts franchise. Meanwhile, the Pacers, I don't know. I talked to Eddie White on the air last week. He made everything sound great. Seems like everybody's pulling in the same direction. Okay? And that is an important thing in sports. You have to have people pulling the same direction. And in the Pacers building, it feels like they are. Okay, the plan that the front office has is pretty evident, right? We've seen the development and the improvement of this, Pacers team, throughout the last, 3 years, right? You go back 2 years and they were just kind of this fun offensive team that scored a lot of points, but they were young and they clearly needed some development. And then you see them at the start of last year, right? And it was, they kind of felt the same, young, developing, fun, but they had clearly improved and gotten better. And part of that was that their star, Tyrese Halliburton, had gotten better. And then they bring in Pascal Siakam right before the trade deadline, right? And then you just kind of, you see him take a step back as Halliburton was hurt, but then he comes back and he and Siakam clearly meshed pretty well together. And then you see him go on this run in the Eastern Conference Finals. Right? Like we're seeing the improvement. We are seeing the process of the rebuild. Whereas like the Colts, it's been the same mediocrity for the last 4 years. Seriously, like it's just been nothing but mediocrity. I don't feel like players are getting better. I don't feel like they're adding anybody. It feels like they just continue this cycle of running it back. They just continue this cycle of Chris Ballard drafting offensive or defensive linemen in the first round and then trying to fill in the gaps from there, but not use free agency to fill in those gaps. While one franchise is moving forward, the Pacers, the other one feels like it's just running around in circles. And that is an issue. And when that's the issue, there's no hope. Chris Ballard needs to be fired, right? And so, bad owners don't win. I'm not to a point where I'm willing to say that Jim Irsay's a bad owner, but he does feel a little bit absent. I need him to fire Chris Ballard. That way we can figure out what the issue is. Is it Chris Ballard or is it the owner pressing all the buttons? That is currently my biggest question about the Colts. Who is the issue at the top of this franchise? Is it Irsay? Is his daughter? Is it his daughters? Or is it just as simple as or is it as simple as Chris Ballard isn't very good at his job? It's one of those three things. I'd like to figure it out. And the only way to learn that is if they fire Chris Ballard, right? But if Anthony Richardson improves to a point where he's a franchise quarterback, then they won't touch a hair on Chris Ballard's head. And that's the thing, right? If you can sign a quarterback or draft a quarterback that is great, then it makes everything else seem okay.